Welcome to the Fear and Greed Business News Afternoon Report for Thursday, the 31st of October, 2024. I'm Sean Elmer. Every afternoon, we've got the 5 stories that happened today that you need to know about. Story number 1, the S&P ASX 200 fell 0.25% today to 8,160 points. Fair bit of corporate news around, but before we get there, the banks were mixed. BHP, Woolies, REA were all lower. WiseTech Global was higher. Wesfarmers held its AGM today. Chair Michael Chaney came out fighting. He said contributions of companies like Wesfarmers have been underappreciated in Canberra. He said some changes to employment laws, payroll taxes and environmental laws work against productivity improvements. Overall, he said the company generally was doing pretty well. JB Hi-Fi's share price jumped 5% today after it released quarterly sales figures that were better than expectations. And Canva's worth a mention. Now, it's not listed, but the software group did a share sale. It valued the company at almost 50 billion Australian dollars. That's up about 23% since it was last valued. That was in April. If it was listed, it would be the 11th largest company on the ASX, ahead of Telstra, bigger than Woolies and bigger than WiseTech. Story number 2, retail trade figures for September were released today by the Australian Bureau of Statistics, and the number came in flat following a boom August. Now, a month ago, we were talking about unseasonably warm weather helping retailers. The spending has held up, though it hasn't grown. In fact, it was actually up by 0.1% for the month. Cafes, restaurants and takeaway food services were the only industries to rise significantly in September. Department stores were the worst. If you look at the quarter, the September quarter, that's interesting because it's after those July 1 tax cuts, energy bill relief. Well, volume was up, but revenue was flat. Spending per person actually fell for the 9th straight quarter, lowest in 3 years. That means people didn't splurge their tax cuts on goods and services. That's probably a good thing, keeps a lid on inflation. Story number 3, there are signs of life in the home building sector with approvals jumping in September. Building approvals were up 4.4%. That reverses the previous month. There was a big jump in apartments. The trend is great. For 7 months, building approvals have been trending higher. They're currently at about 13% above their lowest level. They're running at about 170,000 approvals a month, below the 240,000 approvals needed to meet the government's housing accord, but still, the trend is our friend in this instance. The long-term key to solving the housing crisis is more houses, so the numbers are certainly welcome. Story number 4, the US recorded decent growth last month and the labour market remains strong. That hit financial markets over the past 24 hours. Bond markets trimmed bets of the size of rate cuts in the US in coming months. Now, there's a meeting next week. It is expected to cut rates by 25 basis points, but the strong economy in the US certainly will probably hold things back from any further rate cuts or any larger rate cuts. That pushed the Aussie dollar lower. It had been heading towards 66 US cents. It's back down to about 65.5 US cents. Gold keeps shining brighter, hitting a new record today, just below $2,800 an ounce. It's a safe haven. People like it ahead of the US election. It's up more than 30% this year. Also, there were figures out of China today showing factory activity has responded to recent stimulus efforts. Good news for Australian exporters. And story number 5, some of the big tech companies have reported September quarter earnings over the past 24 hours. Microsoft's share price fell after it forecast slower cloud revenue growth. Microsoft basically can't get data centers online fast enough to keep up with demand for AI services. Otherwise, Microsoft's earnings report was pretty upbeat. Meta reported as well. They said they'd be ramping up investments in AI and the metaverse. Its share price ended down 3% in after-hours trading. And AMD, Advanced Micro Devices, said sales for its AI chips had slowed more than anticipated. That sent its share price down 11%. That's it for the afternoon report for Thursday, the 31st of October, 2024. Michael Thompson and I will be back tomorrow morning with the Friday edition of Fear and Greed Business News. I'm Sean Elmer. Enjoy your evening.